All right, let's get you up to speed on what's going on in Israel and how the media is reporting the horrific terror attacks. Some good, some bad, some downright ugly. It's all coming up right now. I think we were all jarred earlier today when we got a report right from Israel that showed more details about just how horrific these attacks were. And I want to go straight to this video right now. You got to see it.
David, it's hard to even explain exactly just the mass casualties that happened right here. In fact, the Israeli military says they still don't have a clear number, but I'm talking to some of the soldiers and they say what they've witnessed as they've been walking through these different houses, these different communities. Babies, their heads cut off. That's what they said. Gunned down, families completely gunned down in their beds. You can see some.
Let me that's hard to hear, but we got to hear it. In fact, if you're seeing these videos and you're starting to get numb to it because they're so horrific and we're seeing these horrific stories, you got to push through that. Don't be numb. Get angry. And you should get emotional. In fact, as our program continues, you're going to see some hardened reporters get very emotional as they describe exactly what they've seen on the ground here. And I just want to give you some context here quickly, and I'll go back to this video. Babies beheaded by these terrorists, by Hamas. And I want you to keep that in your mind when you see people on the streets saying, "Free Palestine." When you see individuals here in this country rationalizing the attacks over the weekend. Oh, well, you know, this is what happens when the oppressed rise up against the oppressor. They beheaded babies. They beheaded babies. When you see elected members of Congress who are unable to put an unequivocal, flat-out statement condemning the violence, when they have to couch it in some sort of rationale, well, you know, it's a complicated situation, and we should have a ceasefire right now. Israel should stand down. They beheaded babies. When 31 groups at Harvard University put out statements in support of Hamas, they beheaded babies. That's who they're supporting. That's who they're saying. That's whose side they're taking in this.
Some of these soldiers right now comforting each other. Many of them reserves who jumped into action, leaving their own families behind as well, not knowing the sheer horror that they were about to come to. They say they've never experienced anything like this. This is nothing that anyone could have even imagined when you're walking through here. Baby cribs thrown to the side. Doors thrown wide open. Still some Israeli bodies still here because the fighting in this community just ended just recently. So many of these troops are still going house to house, door to door. It's taken them sometimes 30 minutes, 40 minutes, because many of these houses are also still have grenades in them, booby traps. In fact, as we're trying to get closer to some of these scenes, we're being told, no, get back from some of these Israeli military because there are still grenades in the area. I want us to keep walking through, continue.
I also want you to, if I can, just go back a little bit here. As I replay a little bit of this, I want you to take a look at the faces of the soldiers. These are members of the Israeli Defense Forces. They've seen a lot. Take a look at their faces and recognize how shell-shocked they are based on the carnage they've just witnessed, the evil that they've just waded through. Take a look at their faces.
We're trying to get closer to some of these scenes. We're being told, no, get back from some of these Israeli military because there are still grenades in the area. I want us to keep walking through, continue to kind of see the destruction that's happening on the ground here. Even something as simple as a soccer net just left to the side here as people were with their families playing. I see in the distance more bodies being covered, all the while as they're covering these Israeli bodies trying to evacuate everyone else from the territory, taking all of the casualties out of here. It's also littered with the bodies of terrorists. So we're hearing from one of the lead commanders here. It was anywhere from maybe 70 armed terrorists who made their way here from the Gaza border fence, which is less than a quarter of a mile away. And as I said, the atrocities that they committed, violence with guns, with grenades, with knives, targeting these innocent civilians inside their homes. homes. So for the soldiers here, it's a very, very difficult scene for them as well. As I said, leaving their families behind, but they say they will continue to be here, continue to kill every terrorist who is in the area. You can hear we're very, very close to the Gaza Strip, so we continue to hear artillery firing overhead as well. Even as we were giving this tour, we were told to get on the ground and take cover because you're so close to the strip right now, you don't even get the red alert. You actually hear the boom before you're even told to get to the ground. So this is the reality, and this is what all of these soldiers, you can see, none of them expecting this, but all of them being here, ready for the fight nonetheless, and proud to fight for their country is what I'm hearing as well. And so that's why they want to show the press, they want to show these very, very difficult images, David, but they want to.
Yeah. Great reporting there, by the way. I want to give credit where it's due because, well, we don't always see great reporting. And you're going to hear a lot. And again, I just want to put this in context with regard to what you're hearing from people who can't find it in themselves to condemn Hamas and to throw 100% unequivocal support to Israel. And sadly, that includes people in our own government. You're going to hear floated around a lot, well, occupied territory. You may be fooled by that because for years now, for decades, we've heard about Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank. And in your mind, you might hear that and think occupied territory. So these people, they were in occupied territory. They were in Gaza, right? Which is supposed to be Palestinian territory, which, by the way, it's not. But let's just go with that for a second. That's not where they were. Okay, you just heard the reporting. They're very close to the border of Gaza. They're in the internationally recognized boundaries of Israel. These people went across that border from Gaza into Israel and slaughtered these babies, slaughtered these families, these defenseless families. So when you hear apologists who are trying to equivocate and say, well, it's the occupied territories, they're referring to all of Israel as occupied territories. Get that straight. Don't use that stupid euphemism. Because the West Bank and Gaza, they're not occupied either, okay? But when pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas, pro-murdering terrorists use the term occupied territories, they are referring to the entire nation of Israel. They think Israel is an occupying force that should be removed, eliminated. And we just saw this weekend exactly how they plan to do that. All right, that was great reporting from her. Here's another example. This is on CNN, which, again, we don't always see great examples of great reporting. But here is a CNN reporter. And again, this guy, a grizzled reporter who has covered wars for years now. And, well, I'll just let it play out.
In Ra'im, Israel, earlier today, that's the site of the music festival where Hamas did mass slaughter of young people, taking hostages, rapes. Reportedly, there were young women raped next to the dead bodies of their friends. Now you're in Sderot, Israel, just miles from the Gaza border. Israel's been pummeling Gaza all day. What do you expect will happen this evening?
Yeah, Jake, I was hoping we might talk. I'm hit emotionally by listening to the testimony of the people that you were talking to just there, because we've been there in Ra'im and witnessed firsthand what I think they're talking about, that they've seen the video images of, where people had come out, those young party goers at the music festival there, had run away from Hamas, who were just murdering and slaughtering them in the fields as they ran away. And they'd got to their cars, and we saw the line of cars and how they were shot up and how they were strewn across the road as people were trying to escape and trying to save their lives and drive away. And next to that was one of those rocket shelters. There's one just here, but there was one just there. And I went to have a look, and there were torn up shoes outside, and I could see bloodstains. And as I went inside, and this is why I wanted to speak about it now, because it being there, I'm trying to be professional, and I'm trying to tell the story and bear witness to the barbarity and the callous, cruel, cold-blooded, calculated killing that Hamas was ripping upon those poor innocent young people. But that listening to that conversation you were having there with John Kirby, it puts me in mind to reflect on physically what we saw. So let me explain. Because the smell when you step into the shelter is kind of what hits you first, and you realize that this stuff on the floor is what you fear it is. It's blood, and you realize in an instant, looking at the strewn shell casings on the floor, looking at the bullet holes in the concrete in front of you, and you're sort of, you can understand what happened, that people were used to going to these shelters for safety and security from Hamas rockets. And when Hamas were chasing them, they hoped that there was safety and security in these concrete bunkers. And of course, there wasn't, because we could see what happened. Hamas had gone in there with guns and quite literally shot them. This is a deployment of military hardware going by. I'm going to pause. Had quite literally shot them in calculated cold blood as they were cowering there on the floor, and the blood's on the wall and the blood's on the ceiling and the bullet holes are in the concrete wall, and you know in that instant how horrible and how terrible it was. And your conversation brought that back. But I'm moving on. But I wanted to share that because it's important for people to understand. But I'll move on to tonight and what's happening here where we...
This gets even more compelling actually in a moment, but I just wanted to take a quick second and I watched this and I reflect on the fact that it's funny. He said that, you know, I'm trying to be a professional and I'm trying to be objective or sort of removed from the situation. No human being should have to be like that. No human being should be compelled to set aside their humanity for the sake of their profession. How can a person not be a compassionate human being and recognize the horror of the evil that you're witnessing? And I just got to say, I wish we had more of this from reporters. This is a great moment for our media. This is a great moment for journalism. This is a great moment for us to learn something. And I don't want to use it to bash the media. I want to use this to learn and make a point and amplify that point, because we always hear that journalists are supposed to be just these objective automatron robots. And it's a lie. Nobody is like that unless they're a sociopath. When a reporter acts objective and says, well, I don't really have a dog in this race, it's the same thing as when you're a sports reporter announcing a football game. It's just somewhere deep down, you actually are rooting for somebody. And the lie isn't that there's bias in the media. The lie is that they pretend not to have bias in the media. Can't we just be real and everybody say who they are and what they believe and what they stand for, and then continue to do your job? But at least we can relate to you as a human being, and by the way, yes, we can absorb your reporting and absorb the messages you're giving us through that context of knowing who you are and what you stand for and what you believe. But that's reality. Why can't we be real when we're talking about the news and events around us? And this is real, and it's incredibly refreshing.
You don't actually, Nick, you don't actually have to move on.
It seems and feels a bit, yeah.
You don't actually have to move on, because look, this is one of the most horrifying terrorist attacks in the history of the world. And one of the things about it is not only is proportionally, if you look at the size of Israel in terms of population, is not only in that sense, is it worse than 9/11, is that this was done person to person, individual to individual, you know, terrorist to child, terrorist to young girl, terrorist to senior citizen. The remarkably up close and personal nature of this barbarism is one of the things that strikes you about it. I mean, terrorism is all horrible, no matter how it's done, whether it's an airplane into a building or a suicide bomber or whatever, it's all awful. But the viciousness, the pure inhumanity of this these teams of Hamas terrorists going into these neighborhoods, these towns, these kibbutzim, into this music festival where young people were just trying to listen to music and wreaking this evil upon them.
And it was so organized, Jake, that you look at the Hamas vehicles there and they've all got numbers written on them, and you see the body armor of Hamas lying there on the ground where they've been killed. You see everything's numbered. This was organized. They came in a systematic way and just, as you say, unleashed this barbarism. But when you're standing there in front of it, you understand it, as you do, as John Kirby does, as our audience does. You understand that this was, as you say, face-to-face, utter barbarism and terror in the final moments for those people. And you know, we can only think about their families in this moment. Yeah, that's what we come here to do, to bear witness, to tell what we see, and we have. And thank you.
They bore witness to what they saw, and they did it in a human way. Like I said, I just want to emphasize, it's just nice to see humanity on full display there. It's hard to watch. I can't imagine what it was like to be in the room and actually then have to report it. And I appreciate that good work. See, we can praise the media sometimes. They're not all bad. In fact, we've got another great example. Oh, don't worry. We've got plenty of bad coming up from the media. We've got plenty of ugly coming up from the media. A great moment on Sky News out of England. Now, this is with a guy who is like actually a member of the Hamas government, such as it is. Understand something. Again, I want to go back to the lie that we keep hearing about, occupying forces and Israel is, it's Gaza is like an open air prison and no one has rights. They literally have had elections there for almost 2 years, almost 20 years, almost 2 decades, where they can elect their own leadership. Hamas is actually in charge. They're autonomous. They can do whatever they want. They just can't kill innocent people, and they can't even get that straight, right? So this guy is actually part of the Hamas government, speaking on Sky News. This guy is a doctor, and I'll just let this play out and you can see exactly how it goes. But this is another great example of what we would love for journalists to do more of.
Hamas we're talking about now, and you have launched an operation that was deliberately designed to murder civilians.
No, sorry. We have responded to a 75 years of occupation. We have responded to a 17 years of a suffocating siege, killing silently 2.3 million Palestinians. We have responded to the total control and humiliation and insulting Muslims around the world.
Total control and humiliation. I want to reiterate, this man is an elected official in the Gaza government. How exactly does Israel have total control when this guy is allowed to literally be an elected official in the government running Gaza? Number one. Number two, just to bring it home, every single thing this person is saying right now is pretty much exactly what Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and other Democrat elected officials in this country are saying, and members of the media, and frankly, terrifyingly, people on the streets, people on college campuses. They say the exact same thing. Can't make that point enough.
By the incursions of settlers to the mosque, we have responded to 5,800 prisoners living in inhuman conditions. We have until now in Gaza alone, more than 1,000 Palestinian innocent civilians killed, including today they have attacked by F-35 a market in the middle of Jabalia refugee and killed 100 innocent civilians.
It is Hamas.
So that's lies. And then at least this this one journalist for Sky News was able to push back a little bit, although he could have done even more. But it got worse. Here's Fareed Zakaria on CNN, dealing with the exact same thing. This is another apologist for Hamas. And watch how little Fareed Zakaria does. In fact, after the first initial question, Fareed Zakaria just allows CNN to become a propaganda platform for the terrorists.
what Hamas is doing is they're targeting Israeli civilians, women, children, grandmothers.
No, they are not.
Is that not a classic terror? Isn't that classic terrorism? They're not fighting the Israeli government. They're fighting.
By the way, I mean, look at the Chiron. What do you notice about the Chiron? Hundreds of Israelis and Palestinians dead, which is true, objective fact. But how many of the Palestinians were actually the murderers who were killed by the military in response? The Chiron from CNN equivocates and makes it sound like, well, there's violence on both sides. I'm sorry, the hundreds of Israelis who were dead were going to a music festival or sitting in their home, playing with their children or playing on a soccer field. The hundreds of Palestinians who might be dead were either the actual Hamas terrorists or they were warned by the Israeli government, by the military ahead of time, hours before any missile strikes, hey, get out of there because the missiles are coming. But even with the Chiron, CNN is turning a blind eye to blatant evil.
Ordinary people.
That's one way of putting it, but it's not true. I think Hamas mainly attacked military establishments, military installations. And most of the people they have arrested and taken as war prisoners are military people. I do not accept attacking any civilian.
This is a great moment for the anchor of the show, Fareed Zakaria, a very well-paid journalist for CNN, to jump in and say, no, excuse me, you're lying, and we won't let you lie to our audience. Don't they do that all the time with Republicans? I've seen it happen all the time. No. I'm sorry. We can't let you use CNN to lie. You did not target military. A music festival is not a military installation. But where's Fareed? Fareed, where are you?
I do not accept that Israelis attack our civilians, but look at what Israeli planes are doing now in Gaza. They are bombarding houses. They're bringing down to earth, and you've shown that on your screen. Whole apartments, whole buildings.
There we go. Johnny on the spot with the Chiron supporting the lies. Bombards parts of Gaza. What parts of Gaza? The parts where the terrorists are. Now, if the terrorists decide to live right next door to a hospital for the sole purpose of being able to then go on CNN afterwards and saying they bombed a hospital, that's not Israel's fault. It's not anybody's fault except their fault. But here we go with the Chiron to support the lie.
High-rise buildings are brought down to the ground, and we already are receiving reports about families who are killed. 9 people in one family, 10 people in another family, including children. I do not want any civilian to be hurt, neither by Palestinians or by Israelis. But the question is how to end that. Will it end by attacking Gaza Strip another time? Israel has already conducted 5 wars on Gaza. One of them lasted 51 days. They destroyed everything. This did not stop Hamas, did not stop resistance. There is one way to stop any violence, and that is to end the Israeli occupation. And that is for the United States to be fair. They cannot say that Israel has the right to defend itself, but we, the Palestinians, don't have the right to defend ourselves. Let me remind you with the case of Shireen Abu Akleh, who was not only Palestinian, but also...
I can't. I'm sorry. I can't. The fact the fact that Fareed Zakaria couldn't jump in and didn't interrupt any of that, didn't jump in and clarify the record. And by the way, great follow-up. When you say end the occupation, can you be specific? Can you be, because Israel has not occupied Gaza for close to 20 years. So what do you mean by end the occupation? Fareed Zakaria didn't want to ask that question because he knows the answer to that question. The answer is the entire geographic territory that is the political designation since 1948 of Israel. That's what this man considers to be occupation. And CNN let that happen. I don't know what's worse, the fact that the media performs that way, the fact that the media takes that. What is worse? The fact that the media has taken sides on this in some cases and actually parrot and repeat the lies from Hamas terrorists, or the fact that our own government, the Biden administration, set the table for this exact thing to happen. And if anybody was paying attention, there were plenty of us who were saying, why are we doing this? Why? Let me be clear here. Well, let's start the example, and then I'll chime in.
Aren't going to be released for nothing in exchange.
Didn't they also get 5 Iranians?
They will get 5 Iranians as well. Yeah, Jackie.
Then we need to add $6 billion on top of that.
This is the deal that we were able to strike.
Biden's ransom payment will be immediately used to stoke violence, bloodshed, and mayhem throughout the Middle East, putting Israel, the United States, and the entire world in very grave peril.
Joe Biden. That's correct. And let me just be clear, because we're just talking about the $6 billion that was just handed over weeks ago to Iran. And of course, we know Iran helped engineer this deal. But you have to understand something that goes well even beyond this. During the Trump administration, not $1 was given to Hamas, the government in Gaza, and the government in the West Bank, because we knew that the Palestinian Authority, they were funneling that money and allowing that money to be used for terror attacks against Israel. So we said, no, you don't get another penny. And by the way, we're also going to move our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And you remember all the experts, people like John Kirby, people that you're seeing now act like experts in foreign policy, the people who are in charge of foreign policy, like Anthony Blinken for the Biden administration, they all said, oh, this is going to erupt in murder. There's going to be terrorism. The Trump administration moving the embassy and not funding the Palestinian Authority in Gaza and the West Bank, that's going to create a dangerous atmosphere for Israel. And we had peace. We had nothing. In fact, we had the Abraham Accords, where Arab nations actually came and made peace deals with Israel because they saw the United States finally had said, no, we know who the good guys are here. And if you're on our side, if you want to be our friends, you want to be Israel's friends too. And that's exactly what happened. Day one of the Biden administration, they reversed everything. Suddenly we forget about money to Tehran and Iran, the $6 billion that they're talking about here. We opened up the coffers direct to Hamas. We've been sending money to the West Bank. We've been sending money to Gaza, and we've been lying and pretending that, oh, well, that money's going to go to buy baby formula for kids and diapers and humanitarian things and infrastructure and solar panels, so they can plug in their Priuses. But it's not going to go to terrorists. No. Well, of course it did. Of course it did.
Biden just lit a match to the Middle East. Israel has got to be on alert.
The news that the deal is moving forward is drawing criticism from both sides of the aisle on Capitol Hill.
The way to avoid having hostages taken by Iran is to be strong, firm, and resolute, and to not use carrots in the form of $6 billion, but to use sticks in the form of threats.
You notice something here, in case you haven't noticed it, let me point it out. You see the date here, right? Right. You see that's September 2023. This is all from a month ago. This is Republicans warning of exactly what happened a month ago.
To things that Iran holds dear.
$6 billion they want released, and they're going to shore, so they're going to use it for humanitarian aid. There's no guarantees of that.
Okay, one Democrat. One.
So I'm very much concerned about this. So we're looking into it much deeper, but I'm very concerned.
Do you have concern that money is fungible?
There is obviously money is fungible.
The administration says this is limited to humanitarian aid, but they also acknowledge that funds are fungible, which means they can move them around and will aid them in being able to do other things. So people are very concerned.
It seems, very clear to the critics on both sides on the Hill. Money is fungible. That's the criticism. Right. And now President Raisi has added fuel to the fire that already existed of criticism by saying we're going to do anything we want with it.
But isn't it true that this frees Tehran up to spend more on other nefarious goals like supporting terrorism and boosting its nuclear program?
And I can't predict what they'll do going forward here.
We could predict it. We all did predict it.
He explained to you money's fungible. Right. And so any financial relief can be used by the regime in another way. And that's why there is real controversy to this.
It's fungible. You couple that with the president of Iran saying, I'm going to use the money however I want to. Where's that going to go? It's going to go into terror proxies. This will go into more terror operations where they try to kill Americans. They kill, Israelis.
Money's fungible. This money is going to the Iran regime. It's a terrorist regime. It's the largest state sponsor of terrorism, and it's going to kill a lot of people, unfortunately.
That man, Robert O'Brien, by the way, was the national security advisor under President Trump. You remember when the world hated us and we had no good national security or foreign relations, and we had to get rid of Trump, and we had to get rid of Mr. O'Brien and get the grown-ups back in charge, you know, the experts. We had to return to the norms. How's that working out for us?
Fortunately,
you know, money is fungible, right? And so the Iranians will be able to use other funds for their illicit activities. We know they support terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas.
Money is absolutely fungible. So just because they can't use those exact dollars for the purpose they've laid out doesn't mean that they can't change their budgets on other parts of their humanitarian aid so that they're able to redirect that to areas where they can't use that money. Money is by definition fungible. And the other thing is this is absolutely a ransom payment.
Exiled son of Iran's last Shah calling history the best guide.
We saw what happened to the money that was released to the Iranian regime under the Obama administration. It went to further finance the regime's proxies in Syria and Lebanon.
Even though the administration claims these funds are limited to humanitarian transactions, we all know that transactions are difficult to monitor.
Iran's president, on the other hand, understands that money is fungible. Tehran continues to funnel resources to terrorist proxies like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza that attack Israel.
Money is fungible. So Iran may have known this money is coming and used other funds to help fund this attack that happened.
Iran has unfortunately always used and focused its funds on supporting terrorism, on supporting groups like.
And thank you to Grabian for putting together that montage. That last person, as you know, was our Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, who helped engineer the payment of $6 billion. Money is fungible. All right. Meanwhile, you heard me mention President Trump and the Trump administration. He did address in very stark terms the terror attacks yesterday at an appearance in New Hampshire.
That was meant for war. Now, who could imagine a war, right? With people pouring into our country and we have no idea from where they come. The same people in many cases, the same people that just attacked Israel. You know that, right? Can you imagine what this guy has done to us, what he's done to us? That would have never happened. The attack on Israel would never have happened. The attack on Ukraine would never have happened. That was
by the way, he was also talking about our border wall and grave concerns right now that that our border is completely wide open as it is. And in terms of national security concerns, we don't know if Iran has sent terrorists to our country waiting for the cue. There's no way for us to know with the millions that have crossed the border from something like 130 different countries. Trump continued.
As president, I will once again stand strongly with the state of Israel, and we will cut off the money to the terrorists on day one. And reimpose the travel ban on terror-afflicted countries. I had a travel ban. You know, we think of it. I don't like talking about it, but now I can because the time is up. I went 4 years without a problem. 4 years because I had a travel ban. And the Islamic terrorists weren't allowed. It was very tough for them. I had a very strong travel ban. We didn't have a problem in 4 years. People forget that. People forget what happened before I was there. We had a big, big problem. But the bloodshed and killing that we saw this week will never, ever be allowed to happen on American soil, except for the fact that we have now allowed tens of thousands of probable terrorists into our country. We have people coming, men, coming in from China by the thousands. Men, not women, men coming in by the thousands. We have men coming in from the Middle East by the thousands and thousands, and they let them come in, just come right in. There's something going on, and we got to be careful. We need smart leadership. If we don't have smart leadership, we're not going to have a country.
There's one other thing here. I just want to play the very beginning of this part of the President Trump's speech here, because it strikes me as remarkable that this isn't something that every single person running for president of the United States should be able to say. Why is this even controversial?
President, I will once again stand strongly with the state of Israel, and we will cut off the money to the terrorists on day one.
Think about that for a minute. Joe Biden, running for re-election, cannot say the same thing. Joe Biden cannot stand in front of a crowd saying we will be unequivocal supporters of the state of Israel and we will cut off funding to terrorists. He can't. His record shows that he can't say that. And speaking of President Trump and his policy of America First, Fox News had a man on the street asking one simple question from a pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist, pro-murder protester. And that was, what about America First?
I spoke to a guy before this, and he said America First. You weren't happy with that. Why?
Israel would not exist without America.
So no America First for you?
No.
Are you an American?
Yes.
And you don't want to put America first?
No.
There you go. I mean, you know, it's worth playing again. So the problem is America supports Israel. Therefore, we don't want America first because Israel. Are you an American? Yes. And you don't want America to be put first? No. I mean, you can't argue with that logic. It only makes sense if you're an anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist, anti-Israel ghoul.
First, I spoke to a guy before this, and he said America First. You weren't happy with that. Why?
Israel would not exist without America.
So no America First for you?
No.
Are you an American?
Yes.
And you don't want to put America first?
No.
And she has lovely eyes, but a very ugly soul. Mom, Dad, take a look at those eyes real fast, just in case your son brings an exotic-looking woman home. And I want you to meet the new girlfriend. You might want to throw the flag on this one. All right. Speaking of lovely eyes, have you ever heard of a woman named Mia Khalifa? Just so you know, she's not known for her eyes. She's known for other body parts being exposed. She's a porn star. And generally speaking here, we don't turn to porn stars for insight into national security issues. But Mia Khalifa is in the news right now because she has come out fully in favor of Hamas and murder. She put out a TikTok video here explaining the history of the region.
Israel has only been a state since 1948. Palestine is thousands of years old.
Sorry, Mia, you are wrong. Israel is 3,000 years old, 75 years young. And this is not coming from a Jew, but from a proud Muslim. The prophets of God whom I believe in were Israelites. A significant number of these prophets disseminated their teachings in the land of Canaan.
It's a great video, and I don't want to cut my friend off here, only just to show you there's something sort of very satisfying to see a Muslim in a turban actually schooling Mia Khalifa, the proud, outspoken, pro-Palestinian porn star in the actual history here. But Mia Khalifa didn't end with that. During the attacks, while it was all playing out, and we were seeing these horrible videos from the terrorists, she took to Twitter and she posted this. Can someone please tell the freedom fighters in Palestine to flip their phones and film horizontal? Mia, by the way, Mia, freedom fighters. They're freedom fighters. There's so much to unpack here. Let's start with the term freedom fighters. When you're fighting for freedom and you have to slaughter innocents at a music festival and behead babies, maybe you've got a skewed vision of what real freedom is. And let me reiterate, Mia Khalifa is a porn star. The only reason her name is known and the only reason she can afford to buy herself a meal is because she's decided to take off all of her clothes and have sex for money on a camera. Not literally on a camera. I mean, while a camera is rolling. You understand. Although I'm sure she would do that too. But let me be the first to point out to Ms. Khalifa that if she has her way and Israel is wiped off the map and so-called Palestine takes over the region, if she wanted to go live there, she would definitely have to find another job. The freedom fighters that she's rooting for here aren't really in favor of the freedom Mia enjoys here in America, including the freedom to be a complete evil ignoramus. Now, fast forward to the response to this tweet. Oh, by the way, the other part of this, sorry, like I said, there's a lot to unpack. Our porn star here pontificating about the freedom fighters, the sheer evil of deciding to put this out on the X social media platform so that everyone can see, and be advocating for the phones to be flipped to film horizontal so you can have a better view of the carnage. That's what she's asking for. She wants the terrorists to flip their phones so she can get the wide angle shot of the women being raped to a bloody, massive, murderous heap. That's what Mia Khalifa is advocating for. And that apparently was too much for none other than Playboy. Playboy put out a statement saying that they were done with Mia Khalifa. We're writing today to let you know of our decision to terminate Playboy's relationship with Mia Khalifa, including deleting Mia's Playboy channel on our creator platform. They go on to explain that they support Israel and there's no tolerance, zero tolerance. Even if she looks good naked, there's no tolerance for anyone supporting such evil, evil carnage. And as this person on Twitter points out, I want to give her a little attention here. Beyond Rees Doubt, a defense attorney on Twitter, she says that Playboy issued a better statement than Harvard. That's the sad truth. 31 student organizations at Harvard supported the terrorists from Hamas. And when Harvard did finally put out their own statement, the faculty on their behalf, it was milquetoast. Playboy actually has a better moral compass than the faculty at Harvard, which brings us to the faculty at Penn State. Penn State was due to have Riley Gaines, the activist and advocate for women's sports, to appear on campus. And, well, the president of Penn State had a message.
I have no doubt that we will once again encounter speakers that many will consider controversial, either because their views are not widely held or because a speaker espouses ideas that are actively hateful. I share the concern of those who believe the messages spread by some individuals are not only offensive, but deeply hurtful.
Can I just take a moment to remind everybody what Riley Gaines's message is that she believes is offensive and hurtful? Riley Gaines says that women's sports should be for biological women only, that it's unfair for a person born as a man to then compete against women. And even more importantly, as Riley Gaines herself had to deal with this in her NCAA swim competition against the swimmer who goes by the name Leah Thomas, who is a 6-foot+ intact biological man with all male sex organs. Riley Gaines believes that young women should not have to be forced to be exposed to naked biological men in their locker room, in their showers. That a women's space on a college campus should be a protected private woman's space. That she shouldn't have to confront naked male genitals without her consent, which last I checked was a pretty reasonable position to take. And this woman, the president of Penn State, finds that to be offensive. That a young woman, 19, 20 years old, does not want to be exposed to naked male genitalia against her consent. She goes on.
And again, I stand in unity with those who condemn such speakers and their rhetoric. You may ask, if so many individuals, including the president of the university, find these speakers so objectionable, why can't we just ban them from our campuses? First, as a public university, Penn State University is bound by the First Amendment.
Oh, that damn free speech getting in the way again. Ah, if only we were in the free state of Palestine, where I'm sure they'd be fine with all of this.
What does this mean? The First Amendment is the law in our country that protects citizens from government censorship.
Can I point out the fact that this is the president of a university explaining to high school graduates who have been accepted for admission to her university, Penn State University? She's explaining the First Amendment to them like it's the first time they've heard of it. She's explaining the First Amendment of the Constitution to college students at her university as if they are preschoolers. She should just play the Schoolhouse Rock cartoon for them.
Or punishment for speech or ideas that the government does not approve. Without the First Amendment, your access to information would be threatened. Your voice could be censored or silenced.
That would be bad.
And your internet use could be filtered.
Right.
We're often asked, why do these speakers have to receive money from funding boards when a student group brings them to campus? Again, remember, student boards are part of our public institution, which means a government-funded entity. And these boards must allocate funding in a manner that is viewpoint neutral.
And damn fairness. If only, as the president of this university, I could pick and choose whose voices are allowed. It's like she's pining for that. She wishes she were a dictator. But you see how this is set up now. I agree with you. These people are offensive and they're horrible because they think that, men are men and women are women, and you shouldn't allow men in to intrude on women's private spaces. But I hate that. And I wish I could censor them, but the First Amendment is in my way, right? So that's where we're headed here. She's going to have to explain to all these students why, my hands are tied. I wish I could do something, but we got to let Riley Gaines give her speech on campus, right?
The second reason we permit these speakers to come to our campuses is a moral one. For centuries, higher education has fought against censorship, believing that the best way to combat bad ideas is with better ideas, bad speech with more speech.
Sounds reasonable.
We all wish to be on a campus where we are free to express our own beliefs and perspectives.
Yes.
But restricting the speech of one group or individual jeopardizes everyone's rights because the same laws or regulations used to silence bigots can be used to silence you.
Okay.
So what can we do about speakers who come to Penn State to anger, hurt, and incite members of our community?
And clearly, based on the setup here, they can't do anything. They can just tell the students, hey, this is what freedom looks like. You might not like it. Just, figure it out. Move on. Don't pay any attention. Build up some resistance. This is what the real world is all about, right? That's what she's going to say, right?
Speak out clearly and firmly against hateful speech, as well as other instances of discrimination. Hurtful rhetoric causes real fear and anxiety among our community, and those individuals need your support.
Wait, what about sticks and stones?
And people who are impacted, I hope, seek one of the many resources listed at the end of this message. And if you wish to exercise your free speech rights by protesting a speaker, we support you in this action, since rejecting hate-filled speech is the responsibility of everyone.
Wait, is she empowering people to step up and protest in the middle of the speech and drown out the voices that she doesn't agree with? Is that what she's doing here?
Let us keep ourselves and every member of our community safe as we exercise our free speech rights under the First Amendment.
Did you see what she just did? Yes, we did just see what she just did. In fact, so did Riley Gaines, as you can see from her tweet of this video. President of Penn State makes a whole video explaining why public institutions are legally obligated to let, quote, bigots, apparently like me, on campus to speak, then proceeds to cancel my speech tomorrow for Real Women Day. They did go on to cancel the speech, even after putting this video out. My colleague at Town Hall, Guy Benson. Penn State University president makes the whole video, then cancels Riley Gaines' speech anyway. Seems like a slam dunk lawsuit. Celebrating mass murder of Jews is cherished free speech on campuses these days, but opposing biological men and women's sports is cancelable. Fascinating. Fascinating indeed. That's one word for it. All right, we promised you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you had it all, including a porn star. Bonus content on this edition of Larry. Thanks for watching, Larry. I am Larry O'Connor. I would appreciate you liking, subscribing, sharing, following, whatever you want to do, as long as you catch us every single day. We'll be back next time.